So this is the story of a truck we are calling the International Hiboy Wrecker. This is one man's dream built out of a collection of parts. I believe we figured out that we have 5 different vehicles into this one project. So we have a late 40s International kb5 cab with a kb5 front clip. And then we have a late 70s Ford Hiboy 4-wheel drive frame, mid-late 80s Ford Kingpin dually axles, and then using 2001 Ford F350 leaf springs. And the wrecker boom setup came from another truck. So start counting and figure that out. And I forgot to add the drivetrain. So we have a 1950s-ish GMC 302 straight 6 with whatever transmission is attached to it that it came with. And that goes back to a divorced Ford 205 from a late 70s Hiboy, I believe. And if you've been following me, you know that I also have a mid-40s International kb5. This is mine here, not the one we are currently building. So this is going to be a bunch of voiceover here in the beginning because I did not do much filming, but I have some pictures that I took along the way. Just way too busy trying to organize all this and get this going to be worried about filming, but I am trying to put something together of the entire project. So this is the first trailer load of parts that showed up. This would have been Monday morning we received this, or I should say we went and picked this up Monday. So keep that in mind for timeline here. Off the trailer on the hoist, start getting going. And then Tuesday morning, the truck showed up like this on the tow truck. So this is Tuesday morning now. Got the frame up on the lift, started breaking it all down. Get rid of all the old bracketry springs, everything except for the bare frame rails. Kingpin dually Ford axles mocked up underneath. I believe those are from the mid-80s out of another truck. And the frame is actually a 70s Hiboy frame. And this is where it all starts. Let Ryan sit with his thoughts and let his brain do what he does best. Start designing parts. Bare frame rails, diffs mocked up. Ryan's sitting at the computer, working his magic. Day later, there you go. The whole project is in CAD. Let's start making some parts. Send them to the plasma table, cut them out, weld them up. Got all our brackets fabricated and ready to go, bolted on the frame, and everything is lining up and working out. Couple holes to be drilled to relocate bracketry, but it all worked out very nice. Ryan came up with these super slick front spring hangers, shackle setup, just because the offset for the axle width, the 3-inch springs, and the Hiboy frame were obviously all different and didn't match, so we had to make it match. In that same time, the truck, or the 46, got stripped, all broken down into individual pieces, and the frame and engine sent off to a new home. Once we had individual pieces of the body, we were able to start figuring out what needs to be cut and trimmed to make it all fit together. This is us fitting the nose on, cab and bed and wrecker already on. So I believe this was Friday. I think by Friday we had all of this, or Thursday. I think this is Thursday night, sorry. Trimming everything off. Obviously, we needed to lose some of the frame for the nose. Not a big deal. We'll box that in later. Trim some more, keep fitting. Trying to cut as minimal sheet metal as possible. We got it all together, just mocked up. No mounts yet, just sitting there. And again, I think this was Friday. So we started Monday morning with the frame. Tuesday, we got the body. And by Friday, we had it all assembled and mocked up. Thursday, we went and picked up the drivetrain for this project and proceeded to slip that in Friday. So I believe this is Friday afternoon, evening. So a little bit mixed up on my timeline there, but Monday we got the frame, Tuesday we got the body, Wednesday we put it together, Thursday we were actually out of the shop helping get more parts and pieces. Friday we put the engine and drivetrain in, and then that's where it sat for a while. So that was a 1 week build to put all those parts together into one project. Back from holidays, it was time to start putting all the pieces together. So we started with boxing in that front frame rail and making that structurally strong again, and then adding a spot to attach our tilt hinges because that nose is one piece. Body mounts all fabricated and installed. Had to cut the cross member out for the engine to sit down and forward properly where it's actually happy. Got all the drivetrain mounts fabricated and installed. And then once we had all those bits and pieces confirmed, built, and bolted on, it was time to break it all down and send it off for sandblast and paint. Pulling it all back apart, cabs off, wreckers out, engines out. There's a shot of the roller. Back from sandblast, time to start putting this thing together. Working on building the wrecker mounts for the frame. We got some 4-inch quarter angle iron, and we need a bunch of holes in it to bolt this all together to the wrecker and to the frame, and it's all pretty much the same pattern for where these bolt back to back. So we made a little jig here on the table quickly, so we have a hard backstop, and basically repeat the file 4 times over on this bolt pattern, and then we'll flip it, and we're going to cut all the same thing on this as well. This works out quite well. Having a pause the table, I try to not drill any holes by hand if I can avoid it. Takes a little bit to get set up in the layout and stuff, but repeating it, they're bang on. It's all perfect. The layout's all done in the computer. It just makes it easy.
Okay, so we're going to try and kill two birds at once because Dustin's going to film it. It's like right there. So we need a way to mount the entire wrecker body up here. So what we've got is a pair of pieces of 4x4 angle. First one's mounted to the top of the frame, missed the rivet holes, bolted through, then butting up against the bottom of the wrecker, boom and headache rack and all that, and the winch mount, all of it. So the weight's actually going to sit on here. The weight's also going to sit on this piece, which is bolted through the side of it and welded to a piece of plate that runs down here, kind of makes the lines look like they all belong there to begin with, and then is bolted to the frame. The biggest thing is that we didn't want to weld any of these brackets to the frame. We wanted everything to be load bearing, so it's got gussets down from the plate down all the way to the bolts. Everything's bolted together. It's probably way overkill, but it means that since I had all of this programmed up in CAD up here, this is the bolt pattern for that whole headache rack assembly for the wrecker stuff. So in theory, this is all just going to drop. The box is going to drop around this because we already got the holes for it. And once the box is bolted down, which we're going to lift the cab up, put a couple of bolts, a couple of mounts back there, did all that in the older videos. Once the box is bolted down, we can just pick up the wrecker, drop it onto the plate, and in theory, drop some bolts through, and it's done. Because everything obviously works the first time. Right, Dustin?
Third time's a charm. That's why it's perfect, because it takes 3 times to do it. But that's pretty slick. That's a beef mount, that's for sure. And like as you were saying, it's all mechanically fastened, it's all bolted in. And the way that this all flows together, it like follows the hangers. It's a nice piece that you'll never see because it's all buried underneath the truck, but we know it's there. Slick. Let's get the box on. Once we had the mounts for the main wrecker assembly, it was time to build the pivot boxes for it, because the way we are setting it up in this truck is different than where it came. So this is what we came up with for that portion. Working on the boom for the wrecker. So I've gone in and cut off these torch cuts brackets. They just had basically a hole in the end of it. It was super long anyways, and it used to be mounted off the back of the truck, kind of like a gin pole style. This is now actually going to go up in the pivot box, I want to call it. We built some pivot boxes for it properly. They're going to bolt down on top of all of this with the main structure. But this was always crooked. As you can see, these aren't parallel, so it's not going to pivot properly. So we're just pie cutting those. We're going to heat them up and pull them straight so that the boom comes down, and then they're straight, so when the pins come through, they're actually true. So I showed you the pivot boxes. I built those already. We're just getting this set up. Bend these, weld it, hole saw through, and then we're ready to put this all together. So after a bunch of fiddling, we got the box in over top of those wrecker mounts. We had to trim this side back a little bit more because it was just sheet metal was over top of it a little bit. But nothing is totally straight on this entire project. You've got a late 70s frame that's kind of tweaked, and you've got sheet metal from the 40s, which is not straight at all, judging by the bed floor. Up, down, sideways. We've even had this back corner mount. When we built it, we ratchet strapped it down as hard as we could to take some of the twang out of the box, because you can still kind of see that it's kind of this way, but before it was way up in this corner. So we've got it as best we can. It's all sitting on the frame, so it can't get any more straighter than what it is. So I think we're ready to roll this thing forward and get this wrecker mount in here. We've got a bunch of hardware ready to go. It's going to have 4 5/8 bolts on each side, the pivot blocks that we made this morning, and we'll hang this big thing up in here. And then we're looking at putting the front clip, fenders on, and steps, odds and ends, and we're getting there. Okay, we got it all loaded up. We got some fiddling to do because you can see again how nothing is straight. There's a big wow in that one. And same with this one, you can see that there's a big gap in the bottom. So we're just gonna pin bar it over and start cranking some bolts into the setup and get her locked down. Little bar work, moved everything around. Got our new pivot boxes or whatever you want to call them in. We gotta get the boom in. And now this winch is obviously not staying. I believe we have something else, but it's the mount for all that. So all it has to do is unbolt and then fabricate a new winch box for a more modern winch to go in the system. But for now, we're just putting it in for visual, and we can just string the cable out. There we go. Let's get the boom in. And there it is, all assembled and erected. Pivot boxes worked out nice. It's a proper pivot now with an 1.25 inch solid bar. And going through the boom parallel and straight with the ends kicked. And that's where we were at this week's progress. Ryan has some amazing tilt hinges drawn up for the front. He has a complete video about that in more detail, so check it out, but I'll show you that as we go. Another key component to this project was the steering box. I don't have much info on it other than this picture, and I can give a little description that we used a 2-wheel drive Chevy square body box. And Ryan custom fabricated the mounts and all the sleeves for that, and he's done a way better job at documented all of this than I did. So check out his videos. Back at it a week later, and if you notice that the wheel wells and the wheel in the front was not in the right position, you were right. So this is what's called a zero rate block, and this will push the axle forward to match the wheel wells. So you got that zero rate block in there. This U-bolt's not tight, it's just sitting here. But you can see that's the center pin of the leaf springs that goes through and is countersunk into the block. So that block is actually bolted to the leaf spring. And there's another center pin inside of this block that is welded to it that relocates the axle. I believe we're 1.5 or 2 inches forward. New U-bolt plates to match, and we also added a shock mount on there. The same go. So that puts our wheel well in the correct location. Next, it was on to fabricating a firewall and floor. And we tried to not shortcut this, but make it quick and simple, most cost-effective way to build it without eating up a whole bunch of time. I'll show you and explain this after. Doghouse all assembled, and this is later. I'm just picked it up and filming this so I can show you guys. That's why it's rusty, but I'll explain why we didn't use it. But quick and simple is what we were going for, and like I said, so these are not inset. This is just a cap, and there's a flange here, so there's no butt welding, but it's a nice piece, and it actually looks awesome. 2-inch radius. Flanged all the way around, overlap so it's stitch welded, same with the caps. It was actually quite quick to make that in considering of what it was, but we got that all in there and then realized that there is not enough room for pedals on this side, so we had to start over again. Here's a shot of the new versus the old. You can see the drastic change in the shape of this new firewall that gives us the room that we need for pedals. Again, Ryan has done a way better job of documenting all of this and has a video explaining how it's all designed in CAD, and that new firewall is one piece just like the other one. It's all designed in the CAD and then unfolded in the model, cut on the posi table, and then folded up, flanged, and installed. So check out his video on all that. Next project was to build a header. We were able to utilize 2 stock old small block Chevy headers to build one Siamese twin 6-pipe header for this inline 6, and it turned out slick. I don't think there's another one out there in the world. Pushed her outside for some daylight and got the rear sling on, so let's go have a look and do a walk around. Okay, so here we are. Let's get this hood open and I can show you guys everything that we've got going on here. Forgot to mention that we've also built tilt front hinges for the front bumper, separate from the ones that Ryan designed and built for the hood. And I'll walk you guys through all that as I open this thing up. There we go. How cool is that? So you can't really see the front bumper hinges. I'll have to get a better picture of that later. I should have stopped before the hood. But these are the hinges that Ryan has designed up. They actually lift up and out, and they will be available for purchase. We are going to produce those, I believe, out of stainless steel and be available as a kit. Got a rad mount in there. That was a sucker of a job. I think these brackets down the side were on version 3. But we've got them rubber isolated. I just used some conveyor belt and hole saw donuts out of them. And it's all rubber isolated. Fan shroud, all one piece with the fan mount on there. I'm gonna have a look at this week and see if I can't unbolt this snout and get rid of it so that we can lean this rad back even more. Because we're just touching up in the top corner here on that rad cap on that side, and we don't even have the cap on yet. Header that Ryan built, and it also has a full exhaust. Now, I don't have a picture of this, but we had to add the brace because this intake portion basically floats on just the clamping bolts, and factory they're bolted together. I'll show you, I'll drop a picture here of the factory setup. But now we've got our brace and it's got the international symbol on it. In the previous pictures that I have, I'll drop another one here. It's got it's going to run 5 1-barrels, 3 primaries and 2 dummies. The other thing that we got sorted out was our steering. The only thing that we had to make custom was extend that adjuster sleeve, and I believe this is a Dodge tie rod end. I have all the part numbers that will be saved for this project. And then this is just a Jeep YJ Pitman arm from Amazon that we've reamed out to the 1 ton. The only thing that we're missing is our steering shaft to steering column, but for whatever reason, this box is an oddball and that column is an oddball, and that Cherokee shaft that I have doesn't fit. Where I got that thing right here. Double U joint, double D slip in the middle, but we can use that on another project that's in the yard. We're just waiting on some Flaming River pieces for that, I believe, and we'll be steering. So on to that, we've got steering column, pedals, booster. This is something Chevy Hydro Boost modern because it's metric, and a steering column from, I believe, a motorhome. Again, this was all just built out of parts that were lying around that the client had. So we're just utilizing everything possible and not have to buy anything as best we can, really. Jeep YJ pedal assembly, and then we've got our brackets here. This is just tack because we got a seat to go in here, and we'll see if we're in and out enough or up and down. It's easy to make adjustments now that we've got all this fitted, because we can just go in the CAD files and just extend it or shift it or whatever we want. And there's the firewall and floor that Ryan designed up and built. Still gonna do obviously a centerpiece in here, and then this is all gonna get seam sealed and tidied up. I'll show you the other side. He's got the hump in the floor, but I guess, sorry, I'll go back here for a sec. This is why you can see that we had to change course on that first version, because it came straight out and our brake pedal is already right there. We might end up having to put a little pocket in here for the gas pedal, but we gave ourselves enough room here for your foot to actually be here. So let's go to the other side and I'll show you that little piece. Got the little blister for the fire or the starter fitted. Ryan hand hammered all of that to make that piece. Again, I got to get in here, tidy this all up, and patch that top corner up here and seam seal it, finish this top plate, and it'll all be sealed up. Looks sharp though. And continuing on with the exhaust, again, this was all stuff just laying around from other projects and trucks, but we were able to slice and dice and chop it up and get a full length exhaust fabricated in this truck without buying anything. The only thing that we had to make was this cone adapter. And out to these great big stainless 4-inch tips. We've got 2 matching of these, so I'm going to take the other one and just put a dummy plate on it and a bracket, so there's one on each side of the truck so that they're matching. It should look pretty cool. Another big project checked off the list too is these side steps. That's a full brand new set of brackets to the frame. 1.75 inch steel tubing with some brackets. It's all braced and cantilevered so you can stand on this and not have them flex or move. And then we've chosen to bring it all the way out and up to the body line to give it the most amount of drop and seamless line. So that's not where they go factory, but they look slick in that position and they're super strong. Rear bumper fabricated up, again out of a chunk of tube that the customer had laying around. Had to cut off the old C-channel brackets, made our own, and then I just bolted these pivots for the sling mount onto it. And there's the sling. It's all kind of just jimmy rigged up right now, but that will be functional. It is capable of doing it. I got the hood back down so you can see these tilt hinges. It's kind of my idea design that I came up with. The lighting here sucks, but I basically gave Ryan a very brief description sketch. I think I drew it literally on the dust on the floor, and that's what he designed up, and it works awesome. So the tilt bumper is actually separate from the nose, and when it's all up, it looks super cool, and all the clearances are matching. So what do we have left on our end of this project? That's kind of up in the air, but I know I still need to make a lockout for the bumper. I'm just gonna drill and tap basically like a wing nut down, so you just unthread them, it'll fold. Same thing on the steps here. Not the greatest lighting right now because of the sun. Let's see if I can get it on this side. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically make a flange that goes on this fender and will land on here, and then do some kind of like industrial big truck rubber thing. Think like Jeep hood style rubber in there. We have a visor for it to go on. I've got the new reupholstered seat to put in it, and the big question is if that motor is seized or not. If the motor is seized, that's where we stop. If the motor turns over by hand, we're gonna wire and plumb this thing. Drive shafts are at the drive shaft shop, so they are all being made and will go in this truck. And if we can get this thing to flash up, technically it will drive. Won't stop because it's got no brakes right now, but we could drive it onto a trailer, and it is now a mobile project that is a consolidation of five to seven different trucks and multiple piles of parts that were just laying around from a collection that has been collected and hoarded over several years. So there you go. There is a international Hiboy wrecker.